The National Museum of the United States Army has been a long time coming. Before the 185,000 square foot space opened on Veterans Day 2020, a large portion of its collections were held at the Army's Museum Support Center at Fort Belvoir. Clocking in at 127,000 square feet itself, the MSC is home to 30,000 Army related objects and 16,000 pieces of Army related artwork. I had the opportunity to tour the facility in August 2016, and it was really impressive. The first thing you see inside the door is General Blackjack Pershing's touring car used during World War I. They've got endless rows of paintings, including original Norman Rockwell art, flags, hats, jackets, and of course, guns. Lots and lots of guns. By the way, keep your eye on that Hotchkiss. A lot of the early firearms came from the esteemed collection of Dr. Joe Murphy, and it's really quite impressive. I finally got to visit the finished museum in August 2021. Admittedly, the building's exterior is a bit lackluster, and while the main lobby is an interesting design filled with campaign ribbons and names, it too was a bit sterile feeling. Thankfully, that changed with the exhibits. There are a lot of great life-size dioramas that are featured throughout the museum, each depicting a different time period with models being based off of actual current U.S. soldiers. All right, onto the guns. First is a French 1728 musket that's been marked Del State NC for the Newcastle Arsenal in Delaware. And this is a 2.85-inch light field howitzer that was used by Major General Anthony Wayne. Lewis and Clark had a 46 caliber Girandoni air rifle with them on their expedition in 1803, and this example has the most solid evidence and provenance as having been the actual gun that they had with them. Next, we'll take a look at arms from the Civil War. We've got an engraved Henry Model 1860 that was issued to the 3rd U.S. Veteran Volunteers, and an Allen and wheel-lock revolver carried by Captain Josiah Sawtell of the 6th Massachusetts. Meanwhile, Brigadier General Morgan Smith of the 8th Missouri carried this Colt Model 1851 Navy revolver with beautiful engraving. This Krag rifle was recovered from the fight at San Juan Hill in 1898, where Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders gained their fame. Moving to World War I, we have a nice complete belt rig with an early Model 1911 pistol. Upon closer inspection, the slide markings indicate that it's actually one of the rare pistols made by Springfield Armory. Remember that Hotchkiss I told you to keep an eye on? Well, here it is on display in the museum. This Maxim MG08-15 is also really cool. It was captured by 2nd Lieutenant William Comfel of Company C, 15th Machine Gun Battalion, 5th Division on October 27, 1918. The water jacket was painted to reflect this accomplishment. And of course, no World War I display would be complete without a Model 1917, a Shosho, and a BAR. There was an amazing wall of World War I personal photographs and stories, and if this photo looks familiar, it's because these doughboys are recreating Abbott Hall's The Spirit of 1776. Also had to throw in some interesting headgear too. This is an experimental Model Number 13 tank operator's helmet worn by Sergeant David Pyle of the 301st Tank Battalion. And this dented helmet was worn by none other than Sergeant Alvin York during the fight for which he was awarded the Medal of Honor. Moving to World War II, this is a fragment of the flag that flew at Hickam Airfield in Pearl Harbor during the attack on December 7th, 1941. And of course, going back to headgear, I'd be remiss not to include General Douglas MacArthur's iconic summer service cap. Each one of the toy soldiers on this wall here in the American flag represents 5,000 of the more than 11 million U.S. Army soldiers who served in World War II. Production demands could not be met by standard traditional arms manufacturers, so other companies such as Remington Rand and Rockola stepped up and started making guns as well. This LCVP, commonly known as a Higgins boat, was one of the actual crafts present at D-Day, dropping off soldiers on Utah Beach. There are just 19 Higgins boats left in the world, and only 9 of them are in the U.S. This M1 was carried by paratrooper Martin Tehan when he dropped into Normandy on June 6, 1944. He had carved his name into the stock, and miraculously, the gun was discovered in 2016 by a French Army officer who managed to get it back to the soldier's family in New York. This Sherman tank, known as Cobra King, led the 4th Armored Division column as it entered into Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge. The Cold War and the atomic age saw the rise of the Davy Crockett program and the atomic watermelon, which was a man-portable size atomic warhead that was only ever demonstrated twice and thankfully never used in any kind of combat. This AK pattern rifle was captured during the Tet Offensive in Vietnam and was presented to Lieutenant General William Cassidy by his engineers. Here we have an early M16A2 that was originally built in 1982, but was still being used decades later during Operation Iraqi Freedom when it was carried by soldier Paul Crismer of the 3rd Infantry Division. Now, this Humvee here may look like all the others, but it's actually the first, bearing manufacturer serial number 1. This Tariq, which is an Iraqi-made copy of the Beretta Model 1951 pistol, was made for decades, and this particular example was captured by the 207th Military Intelligence Brigade during Operation Desert Storm. Everyone is familiar with Black Hawk Down from Mogadishu in 1993. This is the actual engine from that actual Black Hawk helicopter. Here we have the lower portion of an aircraft landing gear that was recovered from the World Trade Center terrorist attack. It came from one of the planes that struck the Twin Towers. These coins here, or rather this lump of coins, was fused together by the extreme heat created by the burning jet fuel from the plane that struck the Pentagon. This M3 Bradley fighting vehicle, assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division, 3rd Squadron, 7th Cavalry A Troop, was first in the line of vehicles that led the way from Kuwait into Baghdad in 2003. Rhino explosive hazard pre-detonation heater boxes, like the one shown here, were designed to cause IEDs triggered by passive infrared to detonate before the target vehicles entered the kill zone. And they worked. This one was mounted to a Stryker vehicle assigned to 3rd Platoon Bull Company, 1-2 Stryker Cavalry Regiment in Baghdad on December 8, 2007. Here we've got another M16A2, this time with an M203 grenade launcher mounted to it, and it was assigned to C Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Infantry Regiment while they were at Fob Merez in Mosul, Iraq during Operation New Dawn. Of note is the Anniston Depot marking on the magwell dated July of 2010. And finally, these last two pieces will close out the artifact timeline. They are very current pieces. The first is a missile fragment recovered from the debris at Al-Assad after Iran fired multiple short-range ballistic missiles at the airbase on January 8, 2020. And this is one of the M4 upper receivers with an ACOG mounted on it and one of the 30-round magazines that were recovered from one of the destroyed living quarters. Overall, the museum itself is very well done, and if you have the opportunity to visit, I think you'll enjoy it.